Ethan Carter checked his watch for the third time. 7:25. She was late. At 46, Ethan, the CEO of Carter Enterprises, a real estate powerhouse that had made him one of the wealthiest men in the city, had little patience for delays. He sat in a quiet corner booth at the Copper Door, a warm, upscale restaurant he had picked for its privacy, soft lighting, and discreet exits. This was his final blind date, a promise made to his sister, Victoria, that he would try one last time. 5 blind dates in 6 months, all disasters. Women drawn to his wealth, status, and influence, but none interested in him, just what he represented. Tonight, Ethan had decided, was it one last attempt, then he would accept solitude. He had his work, his penthouse, and his routines. That was enough. A soft tap on the table pulled him from his thoughts. A woman approached. Early 40s, blonde hair pulled neatly back, a simple gray dress. Pretty, but without the polished pretense of the women he'd met before. She seemed nervous, hesitant. "Ethan," she asked, her voice tentative. "Yes, you must be," he replied, gesturing to the seat across from him. "I'm Olivia. Olivia Bennett. Nice to meet you," she said, sliding into the booth. "Likewise," Ethan nodded, offering a faint smile. An awkward silence lingered as Olivia fidgeted with her napkin. Ethan felt his usual impatience rise. "Shall we order?" he asked. "Yes, that would be good," Olivia said softly. Menus in hand, they made small talk, whether the restaurant, the usual surface-level chatter. Ethan could already feel the weight of another wasted evening. Olivia seemed kind, yet there was no spark, no connection. Just two strangers, cautiously navigating polite conversation. Finally, he decided to be direct. "Olivia, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you agree to this date?" She blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You seem hesitant, uncomfortable, like you don't really want to be here. So why come?" Olivia put down her fork. Her face softened. "You're right. I almost didn't come. But my daughter, she convinced me. She said I needed to start living again, start putting myself out there." Ethan nodded, understanding the feeling. "How old is she?" 15. "Grace." Ethan smiled faintly. "I have a nephew that age. They're a handful." "That's an understatement." Olivia laughed softly, tension easing. Conversation slowly shifted. They talked about raising teenagers, balancing work and family, the everyday challenges of life. Olivia shared that she was a middle school English teacher, passionate about her students, despite modest pay. Ethan felt himself relaxing. There was no pretense, no agenda, just her, genuine and real. As dessert arrived, Olivia leaned slightly forward. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I recognized you when I walked in," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's stomach tightened. "Here it comes. The real reason she came. You know who I am." "Yes, but not from magazines or news." He waited. "Then from where?" Olivia's eyes glistened with tears. 7 years ago, you helped my daughter." Confusion washed over Ethan. "I don't understand." Olivia took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. That's why I almost didn't come. I didn't want you to think I had any ulterior motives." But Grace insisted. 7 years ago, she was in a car accident, 8 years old. A drunk driver. We were hit. I was unconscious, trapped in the back seat with her. And you stopped. You pulled her out, stayed until the ambulance came, and left before anyone could thank you. Grace remembered. She never forgot. And when Victoria showed me who I was meeting tonight, she recognized you immediately. Ethan leaned back, memories flooding back. He had been driving home from a business dinner, saw the wreck, and instinctively acted. A little girl, scared, trapped, in need. He had held her, reassured her, then left quietly. No attention, no recognition. Just what anyone should do. "Grace, she's okay?" Ethan asked, voice tight. "Yes," Olivia said quickly, relief in her eyes. "A broken arm, some cuts, bruises, but she survived because of you. If you hadn't stopped, it could have been so much worse." Ethan's chest tightened. I didn't know how I could have. You did, Olivia said, squeezing his hand. And you asked for nothing. Do you know how rare that is? Ethan shook his head. I just did what was right. Olivia smiled gently. That's what makes it extraordinary. Most people would have called for help, maybe even driven past. But you actually risked yourself. That takes a special kind of person. For a moment, they sat in silence, hands intertwined across the table. Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't expected, a wall he'd built over decades quietly beginning to crumble. Finally, he asked softly, how is she now? She's wonderful, brave, kind, and determined, Olivia said, eyes shining. She wants to be a paramedic, to help others, because someone helped her when she needed it most. Ethan felt an unfamiliar lightness in his chest. That moment, 7 years ago, a simple act, it had rippled forward, shaping lives, creating connection, purpose, and hope. The night at the copper door had left Ethan Carter restless in the best possible way. He couldn't stop thinking about Olivia Bennett and her daughter, Grace. Something about Olivia's genuine warmth, her unpretentious nature, had slowly chipped away at the walls he had carefully built over decades. For the first time in a long time, he felt more than curiosity. He felt connection. The following weekend, Ethan found himself dialing Olivia's number. His usually precise schedule, tightly organized to the minute, felt oddly flexible now. When Olivia answered, her voice carried the same softness, the same calm confidence that had captivated him at the restaurant. Hi, Ethan, she said, a small smile in her tone. Hi, Olivia. I was wondering if you'd like to meet again. Maybe a walk in the park? Grace could come too. There was a pause. Ethan's chest tightened as he awaited her answer. That sounds lovely, Olivia said finally. Grace would love that. Saturday arrived with crisp air and sunlight filtering through the early winter trees. Ethan parked near the park entrance, adjusting his tie more out of habit than necessity. Olivia arrived a few minutes later, Grace skipping ahead with her backpack bouncing. When their eyes met, Ethan's heart skipped. Grace's eyes were the same vivid, curious eyes he remembered from the day he rescued her. Hi, Ethan, Grace exclaimed, running up to him. You're him. You saved me. Ethan knelt slightly to hug her. Yes, and it's wonderful to see you again. The girl hugged him tightly, her small hands gripping his coat. A warmth surged through him. This was more than any business deal, any company he had built. This was real, tangible, human connection. Olivia approached, smiling, a soft blush on her cheeks. She's excited, she said. You have no idea how much this means to her. They walked through the park together, talking casually at first, Ethan about business challenges, Olivia about school projects, Grace interrupting occasionally with laughter or question. But soon, the conversation deepened, moving past polite surface talk. I still can't believe what you did for Grace, Olivia said gently. You didn't even know us, and yet you risked yourself for her. That's extraordinary. Ethan shook his head, looking down at the winding path beneath their feet. I didn't think about risk. I just did what seemed right. I never imagined it would lead to this, meeting you, being here, knowing Grace is thriving. Olivia's eyes softened. Sometimes the right things have a way of coming back to us. They sat on a bench by the pond, watching ducks glide across the water. Ethan found himself opening up in ways he rarely did, sharing childhood memories of a distant, demanding father, the pressure to succeed, the loneliness of accomplishment without connection. Olivia listened without judgment, her presence quiet but deeply affirming. You've carried so much on your own, she said finally. It's no wonder you're cautious, guarded. But I see, there's more to you than the wealth, the status, the empire. There's someone who cares, someone capable of love, if he allows it. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling a lump in his throat. No one had ever spoken to him this way. Seeing him, not his title, not his wealth. He realized how isolated he had allowed himself to be, how many moments he had missed, fearing vulnerability more than failure. Grace tugged at his sleeve. Ethan, look, I made this for you. She handed him a small hand-drawn card, a simple sketch of a superhero figure holding a little girl, with the words, My hero. Ethan felt tears sting the corners of his eyes. Thank you, Grace. This means more than you know. Olivia smiled, reaching for his hand. See? You've already made a difference in her life. Imagine what could happen if you let yourself let someone in, let life in. The sun dipped lower, painting the park in shades of gold. They walked back slowly, shoulders brushing, laughter shared, silence comfortable. The walls Ethan had built, the careful distance he had maintained, felt less necessary. For the first time, he allowed himself to hope. Over the next weeks, Ethan and Olivia's meetings became a routine. Simple dinners, walks in the park, occasional coffee breaks between Ethan's hectic schedule. Grace flourished in his presence, asking questions about leadership, courage, and kindness. He, in turn, learned from her. Her resilience, her openness, had joy despite the trauma she had endured. One evening, after a cozy dinner at Olivia's apartment, they sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Ethan's mind wandered to the accident 7 years ago, to the young girl in the wrecked car, to the family he had never imagined he would come to love. "You've changed me," he admitted quietly. "I've been so focused on everything else, success, empire, recognition, I forgot what matters. Being with you, with Grace, it reminds me what life is really about." Olivia's hand found his, fingers intertwining. "And you've changed me too," she said. "You remind me that life can surprise us, that kindness and courage matter, that love isn't about perfection. It's about being real, being present." They watched the city glow beneath them, silence filled with understanding and unspoken promises. Ethan knew that his life, once defined by control and ambition, was beginning to shift. Slowly, deliberately, he was learning to trust, to open, to connect. And somewhere in that golden evening light, he realized something profound. 7 years ago, a single act of courage had created a ripple far greater than he had imagined. And now, that ripple had found its way to him, to Olivia, and to Grace, a reminder that one small moment can change everything. 6 months had passed since that first meaningful evening at the Copper Door. Ethan Carter and Olivia Bennett had built something quietly powerful: trust, friendship, and slowly, love. Grace had become the bridge between them, her laughter and courage binding their small family together. Tonight, Ethan had a plan. He led Olivia back to the familiar corner booth at the Copper Door, the very place where it all began. Warm lights reflected off the polished wood, casting a golden glow over the table. Olivia's eyes widened slightly, recognition sparking. "Ethan, this is nostalgic," she said softly, a small smile tugging at her lips. He reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "Olivia, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said a long time ago." She tilted her head, waiting, her eyes curious and calm. "That night, 7 years ago, when I pulled Grace from that car, I did it because it was the right thing to do. I never imagined it would lead to this. Finding you, being here with you, seeing how brave and wonderful she has become." Ethan paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. "You and Grace, you've changed my life." Olivia's hand squeezed his gently. "And you've changed ours," she whispered. Ethan took a small box from his pocket, a simple gesture, but heavy with meaning. "Olivia, you've taught me that life isn't about what you achieve. It's about who you love, who loves you back, and who you build a life with. Will you marry me?" Tears glistened in Olivia's eyes as she nodded, voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, yes, Ethan." 3 months later, their wedding was a quiet, heartfelt affair. Grace walked her mother down the aisle, radiant and proud. Ethan stood at the altar, his eyes on Olivia, seeing not just a woman he loved, but the courage and kindness that had brought them together. During his toast at the reception, he reflected on the journey that had led them here. 7 years ago, I stopped at an accident and helped a little girl," he began, his voice steady but emotional. "I didn't think much of it at the time, but that single act created ripples I could never have imagined. It led me to Olivia, to Grace, and to a family I didn't even know I was missing. It taught me that the greatest achievements in life aren't the ones we plan. They're the lives we touch, the love we give, and the courage we summon to act when it matters most." The crowd, filled with friends and family, listened in silence, moved by his sincerity. After the wedding, Ethan and Olivia established a foundation in Grace's honor, dedicated to supporting families after accidents and crises. The organization provided resources, counseling, and emergency support for single parents navigating the aftermath of trauma and loss. Grace, inspired by the life-changing act that had saved her, became an active volunteer, helping families and children, learning the importance of courage and empathy firsthand. Years passed. Grace grew into a confident, compassionate young woman, eventually fulfilling her dream of becoming a paramedic. One day, responding to a car accident, she found herself in the very situation Ethan had faced years ago, a frightened child trapped in the back seat. Instinctively, she pulled the child out, held her, and reassured her. The child's father, overwhelmed with gratitude, said, "Thank you, you saved my daughter." Grace smiled softly, remembering Ethan's words and the life he had saved. "Someone once did the same for me," she said quietly. "That's what we do. We help each other." Later that evening, Grace recounted the story to Ethan and Olivia. Ethan felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. "You're remarkable," he said. "I learn from the best," Grace replied, her smile bright and confident. Ethan understood then that the ripple of kindness, courage, and love had come full circle. One small act, performed without expectation, had transformed lives, creating a family, a foundation, and a legacy of bravery and compassion. Sitting with Olivia and Grace, Ethan reflected on everything his sister Victoria had once tried to tell him. Wealth and success are meaningless without connection, without love. The true measure of a life well lived lies in the lives we touch, the courage we summon, and the love we give freely. Ethan glanced at Olivia, then at Grace, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The empire he had built meant little compared to the family and love he had gained. Vulnerability, kindness, and courage, not titles or money, were what made life truly worthwhile. As they shared a quiet moment together, Ethan realized the truth of it all. One small, selfless act can ripple forward, shaping the future in ways we can never fully predict. That act had led to family, love, and a purpose far greater than he had ever imagined. And in that understanding, Ethan knew his life had finally come full circle, grounded in love, courage, and humanity.